Elam, an ancient civilization located in what is now southwestern Iran, holds a significant place in both biblical and historical narratives. Flourishing as early as 2700 BC, Elam was one of the world's earliest civilizations, renowned for its advanced culture, including the use of cuneiform writing adopted from the Sumerians. Its capital, Susa, was a major center of political and cultural life, and its legacy is preserved in archaeological sites that still dot modern Iran. In Genesis 14 verse 1-9, Elam's king, Chedorlaomer, leads a coalition against Sodom and Gomorrah, only to be defeated by Abraham in a daring rescue of his nephew Lot. This account portrays Elam as a formidable power in the ancient Near East. Similarly, in Isaiah 22 verse 6, Elamite archers are noted for their military prowess as they join forces against Jerusalem. These references paint Elam as a nation of influence, often in opposition to God's people, yet ultimately subject to his sovereign plan. In the Bible, Elam appears frequently as a powerful nation, often entangled in the unfolding drama of God's dealings with his people and the surrounding nations. The most prominent biblical reference to Elam is found in Jeremiah 49 verse 34-39, where the prophet Jeremiah delivers a divine oracle concerning Elam. Spoken during the early reign of King Zedekiah of Judah, around 597 BC, this prophecy declares God's judgment on Elam, symbolized by the breaking of its bow, a metaphor for its military might. Yet the prophecy concludes with a promise of restoration. In the latter days, I will restore the fortunes of Elam, declares the Lord. In Christian theology, the phrase latter days often points to the eschatological future, a time of divine fulfillment that may include the return of Christ. This promise of restoration suggests that God's plan extends beyond judgment, offering hope for renewal even for nations outside Israel. Elam's biblical significance is not limited to Jeremiah's prophecy. The connection between ancient Elam and modern Iran is rooted in geography and cultural continuity. The region of Elam corresponds closely to modern southwestern Iran, particularly the province of Khuzestan, where Susa remains a key archaeological site. Many Christian scholars interpret prophecies about Elam as applicable to Iran today, seeing parallels between the ancient nation's role and Iran's modern geopolitical and spiritual landscape. The promise of restoration in Jeremiah 49 verse 39 sparks hope that Iran, despite its current challenges, may experience a divine renewal, possibly through spiritual awakening or societal transformation. As we explore the rich history and prophetic significance of Elam, we invite you to join us on this journey of discovery. If you find this content compelling, consider subscribing to our channel for more insights into biblical prophecy, history, and their relevance to today's world. Your support helps us continue sharing these stories of faith and hope. The prophecy concerning Elam in Jeremiah 49 verse 34-39 stands as a profound declaration of God's judgment and mercy, offering a lens through which to view both the ancient nation of Elam and its potential connection to modern Iran. In 2025, Judah was caught between the declining power of Egypt and the rising dominance of Babylon under Nebuchadnezzar. Elam, located in what is now southwestern Iran, was a formidable regional power with a rich history dating back to 2700 BC. Its capital, Susa, was a hub of culture and governance, and its military strength, particularly its skilled archers, was renowned. As noted in Isaiah 22 verse 6, at the time of Jeremiah's prophecy, Elam was likely an ally or vassal of Babylon, making it a significant player in the geopolitics of the ancient Near East. Delivered during a tumultuous period in Judah's history, this oracle addresses Elam's military might, its dispersion, and its ultimate restoration, weaving together themes of divine sovereignty, justice, and redemption. By examining the historical context, theological significance, and contemporary implications of this prophecy, we can discern its relevance to Iran's spiritual and geopolitical landscape today, particularly in light of recent events such as the 2025 Israel-Iran conflict. The prophecy was given to the prophet Jeremiah at the outset of King Zedekiah's reign in Judah, around 597 BC, a time of significant political upheaval. The oracle in Jeremiah 49 verse 34 to 39 is part of a series of prophecies against surrounding nations, including Ammon, Moab, and Edom, reflecting God's sovereignty over all peoples. The specific focus on Elam underscores its importance, both as a military power and as a recipient of divine judgment and grace. The prophecy's timing, early in Zedekiah's reign, suggests it was delivered before Babylon's conquest of Elam, which occurred later in the 6th century BC, aligning with the historical subjugation of Elam by larger empires. The prophecy is structured in 5 key verses, each revealing a facet of God's plan for Elam. 1. Jeremiah 49 verse 34. The word of the Lord comes to Jeremiah concerning Elam, marking the divine authority of the prophecy. This introduction establishes that God's message is specific and intentional, addressing a nation outside the covenant community of Israel. 2. Jeremiah 49 verse 35. God declares, I will break the bow of Elam, the mainstay of their might. The bow symbolizes Elam's military prowess, particularly its archers, who are a cornerstone of its strength. This verse emphasizes the severity of divine judgment, portraying Elam's downfall as an act of God's justice, possibly in response to its alliances or actions against his purposes. This judgment points to a divine dismantling of Elam's power, likely fulfilled through conquest by Babylon or later empires. 3. Jeremiah 49 verse 36. God will bring the 4 winds from the 4 quarters of heaven to scatter the Elamites among the nations. In the latter days, I will restore the fortunes of Elam. The establishment of God's throne signifies his ultimate authority, while the promise of restoration offers hope, suggesting a future renewal in the eschatological latter days. This imagery of dispersion suggests exile and loss of national cohesion, a common fate for defeated peoples in the ancient world. 4. Jeremiah 49 verse 37. The Lord will terrify Elam before its enemies, bringing calamity and his fierce anger. 5. Jeremiah 49 verse 38 to 39. God will set my throne in Elam and destroy its kings and officials. Yet he promises. This structured judgment, followed by restoration, mirrors other biblical prophecies, such as those for Israel in Jeremiah 30 verse 3, highlighting God's consistent character of justice, tempered with mercy. In Christian theology, the prophecy concerning Elam underscores several key themes. First, it affirms God's sovereignty over all nations, not just Israel. Elam, a Gentile nation, is subject to God's judgment and grace, illustrating the universal scope of his plan, as seen in Psalm 22 verse 27, where all the ends of the earth shall remember and turn to the Lord. Second, the promise of restoration in the latter days aligns with eschatological hopes, often interpreted as the time leading to Christ's return. This suggests that Elam, and by extension modern Iran, has a role in God's redemptive history. The phrase, I will set my throne in Elam, is particularly intriguing. Some scholars interpret this as a symbolic act of divine authority, possibly fulfilled through the spread of the gospel. The rapid growth of Christianity in Iran, with estimates of 300,000 to 1 million believers, according to the Hudson Institute, could be seen as a partial fulfillment of this promise, as God establishes his spiritual reign among the Iranian people. The prophecy's relevance to modern Iran is striking, especially in the wake of the 2025 Israel-Iran conflict. From June 13th to June 23, 2025, Israel conducted airstrikes on Iran's military and nuclear facilities, significantly weakening its infrastructure, as reported by Reuters. The conflict, mediated by a U.S.-brokered ceasefire, left Iran facing economic and political instability. According to the New York Times, this period of turmoil could be viewed as a modern echo of the breaking of the bow in Jeremiah 4:9, verse 35, with Iran's military capabilities diminished. Yet the prophecy's promise of restoration offers hope. The growth of Christianity in Iran, despite severe persecution, documented by the Center for Human Rights in Iran, suggests a spiritual awakening. Mission to the World reports that Iran's underground church is one of the fastest growing in the world, with many young Iranians turning to Christ. This movement, coupled with internal dissent following the conflict, as noted by Religion Unplugged, may signal the beginnings of the restoration promised. Jeremiah 49 verse 39. The 2025 conflict also highlighted Iran's internal fault lines, with public dissatisfaction potentially paving the way for political or social change, as suggested by Christianity Today. In a theological sense, these developments align with the idea of God setting his throne in Elam, establishing his presence through the spread of the gospel and the transformation of hearts. The ancient civilization of Elam, located in what is now southwestern Iran, serves as a critical link between biblical prophecy, ancient history, and the modern nation of Iran. Spanning over 2 millennia, from approximately 2700 BC to 539 BC, Elam was a significant power in the ancient Near East, known for its advanced culture, military prowess, and strategic location. Its historical trajectory, intertwined with biblical narratives, and its eventual integration into the Persian Empire, provides a foundation for understanding its prophetic significance in Jeremiah 49 verse 34 to 39, and its relevance to Iran in 2025. This exploration delves into Elam's history, its role in the Bible, its cultural. In Genesis 14 verse 1 to 9, King Chedorlaomer of Elam leads a coalition against Sodom and Gomorrah, only to be defeated by Abraham in a rescue mission for his nephew, Lot. This account portrays Elam as a dominant force capable of projecting power far beyond its borders. By the time of Jeremiah's prophecy in 597 BC, Elam was likely a vassal or ally of Babylon, navigating the complex geopolitics of the era. And political legacy, and how these elements connect to modern Iran, particularly in the context of recent geopolitical developments. Elam emerged around 2700 BC in the region corresponding to modern-day Khuzestan and parts of southern Iran, with its capital at Susa, a city later referenced in Daniel 8 verse 2. Archaeological evidence, including cuneiform tablets and monumental structures, reveals a sophisticated society with a distinct language, Elamite, and a writing system adapted from Sumerian cuneiform. Elam's strategic location between Mesopotamia and the Iranian plateau made it a vital player in trade and warfare, connecting the civilizations of Sumer, Akkad, and later Babylon and Assyria. During its peak, Elam was a military and cultural force. Its rulers, known as kings or governors, engaged in conflicts and alliances with neighboring powers. One of Elam's most notable achievements was the defeat of the Sumerian city of Ur around 2000 BC, when Elamite forces sacked the city and carried off its treasures. This event underscores Elam's military strength, particularly its archers, who are mentioned in Isaiah 22 verse 6 as formidable warriors. Elam's cultural contributions included intricate art, such as the bronze statue of Queen Nippur-Asu, and advanced irrigation systems that supported agriculture in the arid region. In the biblical narrative, Elam appears as a powerful entity. Elam's fortunes waned as it faced invasions and conquests by more powerful empires. In the 7th century BC, the Assyrian king Assurbanipal sacked Susa in 646 BC, dealing a severe blow to Elam's independence. Susa became one of the empire's key capitals, alongside Persepolis and Ecbatana, as noted in Nehemiah 1 verse 1. The integration of Elam into Persia blurred its distinct identity, but its cultural and linguistic legacy persisted. The Elamite language was used in Achaemenid administration, and Susa remained a center of power, hosting events like those described in the Book of Esther, where the Persian king Ahasuerus ruled from Susa. This event aligns with the judgment foretold in Jeremiah 49 verse 35, where God declares he will break the bow of Elam, the mainstay of their might. The fall of Elam to Assyria, and later its subjugation by Babylon, marked the end of its sovereignty as a distinct entity. By the 6th century BC, Elam was absorbed into the Achaemenid Persian Empire under Cyrus the Great. This historical transition from Elam to Persia forms the basis for linking ancient Elam to modern Iran. The region of Elam corresponds to modern Khuzestan, and Iran's national identity draws heavily on the legacy of the Persian Empire, which incorporated Elam. The continuity of geography and culture supports the interpretation of Jeremiah 49 verse 34 to 39 as relevant to Iran today, particularly in its promise of restoration in the latter days. Elam's appearances in Scripture highlight its role in God's redemptive plan. Beyond Genesis 14 and Jeremiah 49, Elam is mentioned in Acts 2 verse 9, where Elamites are among those present in Jerusalem on the day of Pentecost, hearing the gospel in their own language. The promise of restoration in Jeremiah 49 verse 39 aligns with this universal vision, suggesting that Elam, and by extension Iran, has a place in God's eschatological plan. This event suggests that Elamites were part of the early spread of Christianity, potentially foreshadowing the spiritual restoration promised in Jeremiah. The prophecy's declaration that God will set my throne in Elam may symbolize his spiritual authority, fulfilled through the growth of faith in the region. In Christian theology, Elam's inclusion in biblical prophecy underscores God's concern for all nations, as seen in Isaiah 45 verse 22, where God calls all the ends of the earth to turn to him. In 2025, Iran stands as the modern heir to Elam and the Persian Empire, with a rich historical and cultural heritage. The province of Khuzestan, home to ancient Susa, remains a vital part of Iran, hosting significant oil resources and cultural sites. Israeli airstrikes targeted military and nuclear facilities, weakening Iran's capabilities, as reported by Reuters. The U.S.-mediated ceasefire left Iran grappling with economic strain and political unrest. According to the New York Times, these events echo the judgment described in Jeremiah 49 verse 35. Yet the prophecy's promise of restoration offers hope. Iran's national identity is deeply rooted in its Persian past, reflected in its language, art, and historical consciousness. Estimates from the Hudson Institute suggest 300,000 to 1 million Christians, with Mission to the World describing Iran's church as one of the fastest growing globally. This spiritual awakening, particularly among youth, aligns with the restoration promised in Jeremiah, as noted by Christianity Today. Internal dissent, reported by Religion Unplugged, suggests potential for political change, further connecting ancient prophecy to modern realities. The connection to Elam is evident in archaeological sites like Chagha Zanbil, a well-preserved Elamite ziggurat, and in the enduring significance of Susa. The 2025 Israel-Iran conflict, spanning June 13th to June 23rd, brought Iran's challenges into sharp focus. The growth of Christianity in Iran, despite persecution, is a striking development. The Israel-Iran conflict of 2025, spanning June 13th to June 24th, marked a significant escalation in the long-standing tensions between these two Middle Eastern powers. Rooted in decades of enmity, this 12-day war involved direct military strikes, targeted assassinations, and a U.S.-brokered ceasefire with profound implications for the region and beyond. The conflict's intensity, driven by Israel's preemptive attacks on Iran's nuclear and military infrastructure, Iran's retaliatory missile strikes, and U.S. involvement, resonates with the biblical prophecy concerning Elam in Jeremiah 49 verse 34 to 39. This analysis explores the conflict's timeline, key events, geopolitical consequences, and its potential connection to biblical prophecy, particularly in light of Iran's modern context as the successor to ancient Elam. The conflict began on June 13, 2025, when Israel launched a surprise operation dubbed Rising Lion, targeting Iran's nuclear facilities, military bases, and key personnel. Over 200 Israeli fighter jets struck more than 100 targets, including the Natanz Fordo and Isfahan nuclear sites, killing prominent military commanders and nuclear scientists, according to Al Jazeera. The operation aimed to neutralize Iran's nuclear program, which Israel viewed as an existential threat, as articulated by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who claimed Iran could produce a nuclear weapon within months if not stopped. Iran retaliated with waves of ballistic missile attacks on Israeli cities, including Tel Aviv and Haifa, launching approximately 100 missiles, though most were intercepted by Israel's Iron Dome, David's Sling, and Arrow defense systems with U.S. assistance. Iranian strikes killed 28 people in Israel, while Israel's attacks resulted in 610 to 627 deaths in Iran, including civilians, and injured thousands, according to Iran's Ministry of Health. The Iranian operation, named True Promise 3, targeted military sites but also damaged residential areas, with significant destruction reported in Beersheba. On June 22nd, the United States escalated the conflict by conducting bunker-buster strikes on 3 Iranian nuclear facilities, following a March 2025 statement by U.S. Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, that Iran was not actively building a nuclear weapon. The U.S. justified its actions as supporting Israel's defense, though an early intelligence assessment suggested the strikes only set Iran's nuclear program back by months, not destroying its core components. Iran responded by attacking the U.S. Al Udeid airbase in Qatar, prompting fears of a broader regional war. A fragile ceasefire, mediated by Qatar at the request of U.S. President Donald Trump, took effect on June 24th at 4 o'clock GMT. Both sides accused each other of violations, with Israel striking a radar site near Tehran hours after the ceasefire began, and Iran denying launching missiles post-truce. Despite these tensions, the ceasefire held, with Trump emphasizing its importance in preventing further escalation. The conflict had significant geopolitical ramifications. Israel's operation, supported by U.S. intelligence and military assets like the USS Nimitz, demonstrated its technological superiority and reliance on American backing. As noted by historian Mark Volovici in Haifa, a poll indicated 53% of Trump voters opposed U.S. military intervention, reflecting domestic war fatigue. The conflict also strained U.S.-Iran relations, with Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi demanding a change in Trump's tone toward Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei for diplomacy to resume. However, it also highlighted Israel's vulnerability, with 2,305 homes damaged and over 13,000 Israelis displaced by Iranian missiles. Iran's air defenses were severely compromised, and its nuclear program suffered setbacks, though not complete destruction, according to the Institute for Science and International Security. The U.S. involvement drew mixed reactions. While Trump and Republican senators expressed confidence in the strikes, Democrats like Senator Tim Kaine criticized the lack of transparency and congressional oversight. Regionally, Iran's proxy groups, such as Hamas and Hezbollah, remained largely silent, leaving Iran isolated in war, according to the New York Times. The Houthis in Yemen, however, fired missiles at Israel, escalating tensions in the Red Sea. Oil prices dropped globally after the ceasefire, signaling relief over avoided disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz, a critical oil choke point. The International Atomic Energy Agency suspended cooperation with Iran after its parliament voted to halt ties, complicating future nuclear monitoring. The Israel-Iran conflict of 2025 bears striking parallels to the prophecy in Jeremiah 49 verse 34 to 39, which foretells judgment and restoration for Elam, a region encompassing modern southwestern Iran. The prophecy's declaration that God will break the bow of Elam, the mainstay of their might, aligns with the significant damage to Iran's military and nuclear capabilities, and restore its fortunes in the latter days offers a hopeful perspective. The rapid growth of Christianity in Iran, with estimates of 300,000 to 1 million believers, suggests a spiritual awakening that could fulfill this restoration. Despite persecution, underground churches are thriving, as reported by Mission to the World, potentially reflecting God's spiritual reign in the region. This growth, coupled with internal dissent following the conflict, may signal the beginnings of a transformative period for Iran, aligning with the prophecy's eschatological hope. The four winds scattering the Elamites. Iran's setbacks and the ceasefire could create opportunities for diplomatic and spiritual renewal, aligning with the redemptive arc of Jeremiah's prophecy. Could symbolize the displacement and chaos caused by the conflict, with thousands injured and infrastructure devastated. The promise that God will set my throne in Elam. The conflict also resonates with broader biblical themes of God's sovereignty over nations, as seen in Psalm 22 verse 27, where all the ends of the earth shall remember and turn to the Lord. The 2025 conflict has reshaped Middle Eastern dynamics. Israel's success in degrading Iran's nuclear program and eliminating key figures strengthened its strategic position, but deepened regional animosity. Iran's resilience, despite losses, and its call for diplomacy suggest a desire to avoid further escalation, though its nuclear ambitions remain a point of contention. The ceasefire's fragility, underscored by mutual accusations of violations, leaves open the possibility of renewed hostilities, particularly if Iran resumes uranium enrichment, as warned by the International Atomic Energy Agency. The conflict's impact on Gaza, where Israeli strikes killed over 860 people during the same period, highlights the interconnected nature of regional conflicts. The Hostages and Missing Families Forum, its call for an expanded ceasefire to include Gaza, underscores the broader humanitarian toll. Globally, the conflict has raised concerns about oil supply stability and the risk of a wider war, with former CIA Director Leon Panetta warning of a potential regional conflict if U.S. involvement deepens. The prophecy concerning Elam in Jeremiah 49 verse 34 to 39 offers a profound theological framework for understanding God's plan for the region of ancient Elam, now part of modern Iran. This oracle, delivered around 597 BC, speaks of divine judgment breaking Elam's military might and scattering its people, yet culminates in a promise of restoration in the latter days. As seen in Psalm 22, verse 27, where all the ends of the earth shall remember and turn to the Lord. Elam, a Gentile nation outside Israel's covenant, is subject to God's judgment for its actions, possibly its alliances with powers like Babylon, or its military aggression, as hinted in Isaiah 22, verse 6. The breaking of Elam's bow symbolizes the dismantling of its strength, while the scattering to the four winds suggests exile and disruption. In the context of 2025, following the Israel-Iran conflict and amid Iran's internal challenges, this prophecy resonates as a message of hope, pointing to spiritual, social, and potentially political renewal. In Christian theology, the latter days often refer to an eschatological period leading to Christ's return, as seen in Acts 2 verse 17. This promise extends God's redemptive plan to nations beyond Israel, reflecting his universal love and mercy. As articulated in Isaiah 45 verse 22, "Turn to me and be saved, all the ends of the earth." The declaration that God will set my throne in Elam suggests his spiritual authority taking root, potentially through the spread of the gospel. By integrating Christian theology, historical insights, and contemporary developments, This reflection explores how the prophecy illuminates Iran's current trajectory and offers a vision of divine redemption for its future. The prophecy in Jeremiah 49 verse 34 to 39 underscores God's sovereignty over all nations, a recurring theme in Scripture. Yet, the prophecy's heart lies in its promise of restoration. In the latter days, I will restore the fortunes of Elam, declares the Lord. The Israel-Iran conflict of June 13th to 24th, 2025 provides a modern lens for interpreting Jeremiah's prophecy. Israel's airstrikes, targeting Iran's nuclear and military infrastructure, and the US's subsequent strikes, as reported by Reuters, weakened Iran's capabilities, mirroring the breaking of the bow in Jeremiah 49 verse 35. The conflict has told 610 to 627 deaths, thousands injured, and significant damage to Iran's facilities. According to Iran's Ministry of Health, reflects the calamity foretold in Jeremiah 49 verse 37. The displacement and economic strain, noted by the New York Times, parallel the scattering described in verse 36. However, the prophecy's promise of restoration offers hope amid these challenges. The conflict, while devastating, exposed Iran's internal fault lines, with public dissatisfaction growing, as reported by Religion Unplugged. This unrest, coupled with the ceasefire mediated by Qatar, creates a moment of potential transformation. Theologically, this aligns with God's pattern of using judgment to pave the way for renewal, as seen in Hosea 6 verse 1 to 2, where God tears that he may heal. A striking sign of potential restoration is the rapid growth of Christianity in Iran, despite severe persecution. Estimates from the Hudson Institute suggest 300,000 to 1 million Christians, with Mission to the World describing Iran's underground church as one of the fastest growing globally. Stories of resilience, such as those shared by Christianity Today, highlight believers' courage, meeting in secret house churches, and sharing faith despite risks. This growth, amidst the 2025 conflict's turmoil, aligns with the biblical principle that God's kingdom advances in adversity, as seen in Matthew 16 verse 18, where Christ declares, "The gates of hell shall not prevail against his church." This movement, driven largely by young Iranians, reflects a spiritual hunger, possibly fulfilling the prophecy's vision of God setting his throne in Elam. The presence of Elamites at Pentecost in Acts 2 verse 9, hearing the gospel, foreshadows this modern revival, suggesting a historical continuity of God's work in the region. Persecution remains intense, with the Center for Human Rights in Iran reporting a six-fold increase in Christian imprisonments in 2025. Yet, the promise of restoration in Jeremiah 49 verse 39 offers a multifaceted hope for Iran. Spiritually, the ceasefire and Iran's call for diplomacy, as voiced by Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, suggest a willingness to engage with the international community. While tensions with Israel and the U.S. persist, the conflict's resolution without a broader war offers a window for dialogue. Theologically, this aligns with God's redemptive pattern, where nations are humbled to turn toward him, as seen in Jonah 3 verse 5 to 10, where Nineveh repents and is spared. The growth of Christianity suggests a divine renewal. The conflict's impact on oil prices and regional stability, as reported by Al Jazeera, underscores Iran's strategic importance. A transformed Iran, whether through spiritual revival or political reform, could reshape Middle Eastern dynamics, fulfilling the universal call of Isaiah 60 verse 3, where nations shall come to your light, with believers embodying God's presence in a nation marked by restriction. Socially, the conflict's aftermath, including economic hardship and political dissent, may catalyze change. The New York Times noted Iran's precarious state post-conflict, with potential for a revolution of the disaffected, as younger generations seek alternatives to the current regime. This unrest, while challenging, could open doors for greater freedoms, including religious liberty, aligning with the prophecy's vision of restored fortunes. Politically, the global implications of Iran's trajectory are significant. The prophecy in Jeremiah 49, verse 34 to 39, offers hope for Iran, connecting its ancient past as Elam to its present challenges and future potential. The 2025 Israel-Iran conflict reflects the judgment foretold, while the growth of Christianity and internal unrest signal a possible spiritual and social renewal. This vision of restoration aligns with God's redemptive plan for all nations, as seen in Revelation 7, verse 9. Join us in exploring these prophetic insights by subscribing to our channel for more content on faith, history, and hope.